Australia accuses Iran of organising anti-Semitic attacks and expels ambassador. Melbourne, Australia. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese accused Iran of organising two anti-Semitic attacks in Australia and said the country was cutting off diplomatic relations with Tehran in response on Tuesday. The Australian Security Intelligence Organisation concluded the Iranian government had directed arson attacks on the Lewis Continental Kitchen, a kosher food company, in Sydney in October last year and on the Adass Israel Synagogue in Melbourne in December last year, Albanese said. Iran's government had no immediate reaction. Australian intelligence says Iran was behind arson attacks. There has been a steep rise in anti-Semitic incidents in Sydney and Melbourne since the Israel-Hamas war began in 2023. Australian authorities have previously said they suspect that foreign actors are paying local criminals for hire to carry out attacks in the country. Crackdown inside Iran. State of the World from NPR. A crackdown inside Iran. Police have already arrested at least one suspect in the Sydney cafe fire investigation and two suspects directly accused of torching the Melbourne synagogue. ASIO has now gathered enough credible intelligence to reach a deeply disturbing conclusion, Albanese told reporters. The Iranian government directed at least two of these attacks. Iran has sought to disguise its involvement, but ASIO assesses it was behind the attacks. These were extraordinary and dangerous acts of aggression orchestrated by a foreign nation on Australian soil, he said. They were attempts to undermine social cohesion and sow discord in our community. It is totally unacceptable. Australia breaks off diplomatic relations and warns citizens in Iran. Shortly before the announcement, the Australian government told Iran's ambassador to Australia Ahmad Sadeghi that he will be expelled. It also withdrew Australian diplomats posted in Iran to a third country, Albanese said. An alert to Australians in Iran noted the embassy's closure and urged them to strongly consider leaving as soon as possible, if it is safe to do so. Foreigners in Iran, including Australians and dual Australian-Iranian nationals, are at a high risk of arbitrary detention or arrest, the warning read. Australia updated its warning to travellers to its highest level: do not travel to Iran. Iran has a long history of detaining Westerners or those with ties abroad to use as bargaining chips in negotiations. Foreign Minister Penny Wong said that Canberra would keep some diplomatic lines open to Tehran to advance Australia's interests. She added that it was the first time Australia has expelled an ambassador since World War II. Albanese aims to declare Iran's Revolutionary Guard a terrorist organization. Albanese said that Australia will legislate to list Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization. Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard has been accused of carrying out attacks abroad over the decades of its existence, though it broadly denies any involvement. The Guard's Quds, or Jerusalem, forces its expeditionary arm and is accused by Western nations of using local militants and criminals in the past to target dissidents and Israelis abroad. A spokesperson for the Executive Council of Australian Jewry welcomed the terrorist designation for the Revolutionary Guard, adding in a statement that the group was outraged that a foreign actor was behind the crimes. Foremost, these were attacks that deliberately targeted Jewish Australians, destroyed a sacred house of worship, caused millions of dollars of damage, and terrified our community, the statement said. Since the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas war, Israel has arrested several people on charges they had been paid or encouraged by Iran to carry out vandalism and monitor potential targets there. The move against Iran came a week after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu branded Albanese a weak politician who had betrayed Israel by recognizing a Palestinian state. Netanyahu's extraordinary public rebuke on social media came after an August 11 announcement by Albanese that his government's recognition of a Palestinian state will be formalized at the United Nations General Assembly in September. The announcement was followed by tit-for-tat cancellations of visas for Australian and Israeli officials. Australia says Iran helped escalate anti-Semitic incidents. Neither ASIO Director General Mike Burgess nor Albanese explained what evidence there was of Iranian involvement. Burgess said no Iranian diplomats in Australia were involved. This was directed by the IRGC through a series of overseas cutout facilitators to coordinators that found their way to tasking Australians, Burgess said. While anti-Semitic incidents increased in Australia after the Israel-Hamas war began on October 7, 2023, Iran was responsible for a transition in October last year when the violence more directly targeted people, businesses, and place of worship, Burgess said. Iran started the first of those, Burgess said.